We have the next presenter is Fred Truyen. He will tell something about connecting communities and capacity building. So, Fred, the floor is yours.
So, thank you. And in this very short presentation, I will quickly give an overview on what we did on capacity building, which was a major effort in the project. I'm here as a porte-parole, in fact, for the colleagues who worked on that. But let me start by contextualizing it. One of the problems that occurs when you digitize collections, for example, in an archive, which as such is not a museum, and you start to put those online, something happens, of course. The collection, instead of having a focus on the objects in the collection, suddenly becomes a representation, becomes a showcase. And then it can be that people feel represented by this collection and feel interested, but it could also be that they feel misrepresented, as we heard from Jolan, or simply ignored. It could be that they say, hey, but where is our history in this collection? And in particular for archives, and we are here in an archive community, this is a conundrum, because there is a push to go open, but in your cellars there is stuff that is maybe never meant to be showcased. And another problem is that the objects in the collection almost always relate to intangible heritage, to practices, to cultural ways of living that are not always documented in the way the document is produced or stored. So that offers a context which leads to a lot of the problems that Jolan explained. And this means that not only the heritage institutions need to develop this understanding and sensitivity, and we heard all about that. But to me, it also means that if you want to really reach out to these communities and give them a voice in the process, you need to educate them too. So it's not only capacity building for the institutions that we did, we also wanted, and that is why we partnered with these heritage institutions, these community institutions like ERIAC, to educate, train their constituency, their community, of taking a voice and making their voices heard. And that is the double coin of capacity building. Now we did, and I invite you to really look at the website weaveculture.eu, because everything is there. We documented everything we did on the capacity building. You will find reports of all the activities, and you will find takeaways, notes, how-tos. There is a white paper there, so really go to the website and explore the materials on capacity building that we developed there and that are there for you to reuse. And so I really want to give credits to Rosa, who managed not only the concept that came from Culture Moves and that we wanted to implement in these capacity building lab days, and we did a whole series of that. So there were almost every week there was a lab day somewhere where we reached out to audiences. We found this very important, and it is the most important thing, it is a replicable format. So you will find in Weave a template to organize such a lab day, the reflections on what you should be thinking about, how to implement it, that is all foreseen. And then with Partner Europeana, we tried to really make this capacity building in a format. So we developed a kind of playbook that you can use to do such capacity building efforts. And this is also a kind of workbook that we also used to implement this. And this you will find online also. We quickly realized that it was not really up to us to invent all these ideas, and as Roland also indicated, it proved to be important to find people who come from communities and who can help us understand where the sensitivities lay. And for example, one of the discussion points that Tola, who guided a few of these series, mentioned to us is, do not underestimate the communities themselves. And there are the heritage institutions, but there are also the kind of institutionalized practices of the communities, and try to reach out to those and to connect them to your heritage institutions and build these relationships. We tried to gather all the insights from each and every lab day and workshop that we did. You will find a report online and you will find the key takeaways. And it are these takeaways that we then made a kind of resume of in our report. And there is a list of key points that we think you should have in mind when you reach out to communities. You will find that also on our website. So please go there, and then you will find these kind of advices. So we think it is important to have lightweight activities that you can repeat, because there is more value in the repetition than because you want to reach out to communities, so you want to be present, and try to organize it in such a way that it's no longer your collection that is at the center, but really the intangible practice, the heritage that surrounds it and that gives the object its meaning. And let's not be naive. We cannot solve the deeper inequalities at once, the deeper frustrations, the conflicts, and be aware that there is a lot of bitterness also, that is not a walk in the park, and that when you organize such a day, people could become very critical about your collections, about the way they are described. Be prepared for that. It's really not a kind of festive event where you say, oh, come in and we share our collection with you. No, collections can be heavily disputed. We are trying, of course, to develop common languages. That is what we try to do by cleaning metadata. But there is a boundary to that. Sometimes there are opposing communities who will never agree on the way you word things. So keep that in mind, be realistic, but try to move forward. That is our message. I don't know if I still have a minute to go, but that was what I wanted to bring in this short intervention. And so the documentation is there. I think we proved that it's quite easy to organize such things, to repeat it, and to have an impact with your communities. Okay.
Thank you, Fred, for the introduction to the lab days and the approach that we've took and still takes. I mean, debate within these lab days is something that is, I would say, not only foreseen but also expected. So, because that's the reason why these communities are involved, and